Chapter 437, Body of the Sacred Tree. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Lu Fanxian turned around and was about to leave. After 3 days of preparation, he would have a decisive battle with Zhang Yuochen in the Heavenly Ring. This war was still very stressful for him. After all, in the martial world, the evaluation of Zhang Yuochen was even above Bu Qianfan. Wait. Zhang Yuochen took a 6-inch casket from his palm and handed it to Lu Fanxian. Then he said, "There is a purple cloud patterned eaglewood weighing 5.5 kilograms in this casket. It's a gift to you, Brother Lu." A purple cloud patterned eaglewood. Lu Fanxian's eyes became bright as he stared at the casket and swung his sleeve, displaying the trick of telekinesis. With one blast of genuine chi rushing out, he rolled the casket into his hands. The eastern region recently had been agog with rumors about the 5 spirit treasures in the 5 elements primitive world. Lu Fanxian certainly had heard of the purple cloud patterned eaglewood, which was the spirit treasure of origin of the wood spirit. If it was refined, it could save a warrior 10 years of penance. There would even be the opportunity for the warriors to practice the treasured body of the wood spirit. Therefore, there were countless warriors drooling with envy over the purple cloud patterned eaglewood. Zhang Yuochen had gotten more than 100 kilograms of purple cloud patterned eaglewood when he destroyed the evil wood palace. However, it was not all the purple cloud patterned eaglewood in the 5 elements primitive world. In the 5 elements primitive world, other human forces and beast races had a small amount of purple cloud patterned eaglewood. Even the underground of the 5 elements primitive world was still buried with a large number of purple cloud patterned eaglewood, which had not yet been excavated. Therefore, in the 3rd round of assessments, it was not only Zhang Yuochen who had gotten 5 spirit treasures. Some other talented students had also gotten 5 spirit treasures, but they did not get as much as Zhang Yuochen. Recently, because of the 5 spirit treasures of the 5 elements primitive world, there had been more than a dozen bloody cases in the eastern region. Among them, there were even half-saints participating in the fighting. In the martial market of East Region Saint City, 50 grams of purple cloud patterned eaglewood had been raised to the price of 60,000 spiritual spinels. But there was still a price without a market. Lu Fanxian was a natural body of the sacred tree. He could absorb the light of the sun and moon, saturate the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and transform it into his own energy. So from the time of infancy, Lu Fanxian had not eaten any food. In ancient times, their warriors who possessed the body of the sacred tree were able to obtain shelter from the sacred prime tree. At the moment of their birth, they were brought into the sacred tree sect and became the heirs of the sect master of the sacred tree sect. Certainly, after the sacred prime tree was cut off, the sacred tree sect also disappeared. If the sacred prime tree had not been cut off, their warriors who possessed the body of the sacred tree could absorb the power of the sacred prime tree. They had greater potential than the saintly beings. Since the sacred prime tree had already disappeared from the world, then the body of the sacred tree was no longer as strong as before, and even weaker than the saintly beings. The purple cloud patterned eaglewood had infinite magical effects on the warriors with a body of the sacred tree. Once they were refined, they could practice a stronger physical quality than the treasured bodies of double spirits, which was enough to compete with the treasured body of 3 spirits. Lu Fanxian opened the casket and saw the purple cloud patterned eaglewood inside it. He appeared rather calm as he looked at Zhang Yuochen and said, "Zhang Yuochen, are you sure you want to give me the purple cloud patterned eaglewood?" Zhang Yuochen nodded and answered, "Yes." Lu Fanxian was the descendant of Zhang Ruken's 6th elder brother, Lu Yuanzai. Since his body of the sacred tree needed the purple cloud patterned eaglewood, why couldn't Zhang Yuochen give it to him? Lu Fanxian stared at Zhang Yuochen for some time and said, "Okay, I've decided to make friends with you." Lu Fanxian was very clear that the reason why Zhang Yuochen had set the time for the battle to 3 days was that it gave him 3 days to refine the purple cloud patterned eaglewood. In 3 days, if I have refined the purple cloud patterned eaglewood, do you still have a chance to win? Lu Fanxian returned tit for tat. "Since I've dared to give the purple cloud patterned eaglewood to you, I naturally have an absolute certainty." Zhang Yuochen smiled with his hands behind his back, followed a disciple of the Sword Sanctum, and went toward the direction of an ancient building on the mountainside of Sacred Mountain. "Wow! He is so handsome, brother. You are really far worse than Zhang Yuochen." Holding her hands in front of her chest like someone with an obsessive crush, Lu Xuan looked at the back of Zhang Yuochen with a pair of round eyes that kept shining. Lu Fanchen did not feel even the slightest anger, saying, "That man is just so brilliant that it is worth it to make friends with him." The Foreign Affairs Presbyter of the Sword Sanctum, Lu Yukai, was in charge of all the outward property of the Sword Sanctum, including the purchase of forging materials, mine management, personnel mobilization, and so on. Therefore, Lu Yukai's privilege was quite large, and the job was very profitable. Moreover, he himself was also a superior, and his cultivation had reached the fourth change of the fish-dragon realm, establishing the Holy Meridian. At this moment, Lu Yukai sat opposite Zhang Yuochen. He was round in shape and round-faced. He looked to be about 50 years old. It was certain that his true age was much more than that. Lu Yukai was eloquent, and he had heard that this young king had received the reception of his ancestor. Therefore, although he represented the Sword Sanctum, he did not show the slightest pride and was always smiling with a very kind demeanor. "Mr. Zhang visits the Sword Sanctum in person. I wonder if there is anything I can do to help," said Lu Yukai with a smile. Zhang Yuochen took a sip of tea and said, "I have something to sell to the Sword Sanctum, but I don't know if predecessor wants to buy it." Lu Yukai moved his eyes, and although a smile still hung on his face, his mind was somewhat thinking otherwise. What kind of place was the Sword Sanctum? As long as he wanted something, he could certainly get it. He would not need to buy anything from a young junior. Lu Yukai was indeed an eloquent person, but sitting in his own place, he could not change his bad habit, and that was so arrogant. Even though he did not show that arrogance, his mind was quite arrogant. Therefore, he could not help ignoring Zhang Yuochen slightly. Lu Yukai licked his lips and tactfully said, "If Mr. Zhang really has any great treasures, you could place them in the auction house and sell the treasures by auction to maximize their value." The reason why Zhang Yuochen did not bring the purple cloud pattern dealwood and black glazed spinel to the auction house to sell is that he did not want to be a cheap outsider and would like to sell them to some familiar big forces, even if he took a slight loss. Zhang Yuochen did not expect that the Foreign Affairs Presbyter of the Sword Sanctum would decline directly without even asking him what he wanted to sell. Should Zhang Yuochen continue to put his hot face on the cold butt of others? Well, in that case, I will go elsewhere and take a look. If it can't be sold, it won't be too late for me to go to the auction house. Zhang Yuochen stood up and was ready to leave. Bam! At that moment, a white light spot appeared in the center of the room, emitting a glaring light. That spot of light grew bigger and became an illusory image of Jade Saint. It was the sacred thought of a saint. "I greet our ancestor." Lu Yukai immediately kneeled on the ground and bowed to the sacred thought. His mind was fidgeting and he did not know what was going on. After all, the ancestor's sacred thought rarely appeared. And once there, it was certainly something that was very important. The sacred thought of the Jade Saint said, "Lu Yukai, within 3 days, buy 50 kilograms of black glazed spinels with all financial resources. I have great use for them." Having said this, the sacred thought disappeared. 50 kilograms of black glazed spinels. Lu Yukai constantly wiped the sweat from his forehead and secretly groaned in his heart. Now, it was difficult to buy even 50 grams of black glazed crystal, to say nothing of 50 kilograms. "Isn't this going to kill me?" However, the ancestor had spoken in person, which was equivalent to an imperial edict. If he could not complete the task, even if his ancestor did not punish him, other people who looked at the position of the Foreign Affairs Presbyter in the Sword Sanctum would certainly trouble him. At that time, his position of Foreign Affairs Presbyter would certainly be unstable.